Let's jump into our final segment of the night, Brian. Our defensive takeaways from the film. There are a few things that we want to cover, and then, of course, we will hit our key moments. Only a couple of moments that we want to hit, some turning point moments for the defense. But our takeaways for the defense. Let's talk. What do we got here? Wait, I
You just
thought
got
he
me in trouble.
Well, it's been kind of consecutive of you getting me in trouble with your wife here for the past few days.
You said that I would have more time to do breakdowns now that it's a bye week. You said it, not me.
Oh, no. You're definitely in trouble. Yeah, I'll definitely get in trouble for that. I'm just saying. No, anyway. So defensively, Brian, the secondary. Let's start on a positive note with the secondary. The secondary, especially when you throw in, I mean, you don't even have to throw in the injuries and the different situations that they had to deal with. But even if you didn't do that, the secondary played well, and you add that into it, and it's like, yeah,
just for who was out there, like you said,
yeah, exactly.
Take any context away if you didn't have. Secondary was awesome in this game.
Yes,
a couple plays here and there. Again, Louisville's going to win some battles, and Leonard Moore gave up 2 deep balls, but they both required great throws and great catches.
Yeah,
to beat him. I mean, he was excellent. Benjamin had one big mistake in the game. As I said, the one pet play he gave up, if you go back and watch it, even from the TV copy, you'll see the guy kind of, I couldn't tell if he grabbed him up by the jersey or if he grabbed his face mask. I couldn't tell that. Slams him down, and, that's a penalty. That should be a penalty. Can't do that. And, man, but you look at it, I mean, Jordan Clark played great. Leonard Moore played his butt off. Benjamin had another good game. Again, he wasn't perfect, but against a team like Louisville, they're going to make some plays too.
Yeah.
Xavier Watts, like I said, had the one missed tackle. Outside of that, he was great. I thought Adon Schuler had one. I think Adon is who should have, like Adon on the touchdown pass, the second touchdown pass, he kept chasing a guy going across where it's a zone. You got to turn him loose to the front side coverage and sit in that back window. And that's where the guy, I kind of thought that was on Adon. Gotcha. Young guy mistake, stuff like that. I mean, it's a scramble play. That's going to happen on a scramble play. You don't like it, you correct it, but man, I just thought overall, it's like you're nitpicking to find things wrong with the secondary. I mean, you really are. I thought Rod Hurd, who overall I hadn't been thrilled with his play so far. I thought this was his best game in a Notre Dame uniform by far. I think Jordan Clark's been good all year. We said before the game, yeah, he's been good, but he hasn't really been challenged yet. He's going to get challenged in this game. And I thought he stepped up and answered the bell impressively. Jordan Clark did. So I thought both your transfers stepped up and played great in this game. And then there was at one point in time where Benjamin Morrison gets hurt, and you got to put Jordan Clark out at cornerback. And, you were still good. So, man, I tell you what, Vince, I was just, I mean, Mike Mickens is just that dude as a coach. I mean, it is insane. And there's 2 aspects of it. One, great talent evaluation, because other than like what, me, like who had Leonard Moore as a dude coming into this class, right? Like I'm talking about like national services. Like I know Ryan liked him a lot. I liked him a lot. I think Sean Davis also was high on him, but like outside of Irish Breakdown, I should say, no one had him in their top 300. I don't think. I'm going to go look at Leonard Moore's ranking. I know a couple of them had him as a 3-star, and I kept trying to tell y'all, like, don't read that stuff. Don't listen to that stuff. That's nonsense. This guy's a baller. Rivals is the only one that had him as a 4-star, and they had him number 228. That's it. Everybody else had him as a 3-star. On 3, had him as the number 71 player in the state of Texas. 247 had him as the number 76 player in the state of Texas. ESPN him as the number 99 player in the state of Texas. They all had him outside the top 40 at cornerback. Tell me that there's 40 better cornerbacks in that class than Leonard Moore. The answer is there isn't. Or it's the greatest cornerback class in the history of football ever. Right? He's a dude. Well, Mike Mickens found him early and got on him early, just like he did Benjamin Morrison. And, the fact that you can lose Cam Hart and replace him with a Christian Gray is impressive enough. And then you can lose Christian Gray, who got reps all week in practice, Vince, because they thought they were going to try to get him to play. He's a game time, no decision. And then the other dude steps in, not getting full starter reps during the week, and balls out. Like, Like literally whatever you're paying Mike Mickens, and I know for a fact that they gave him a nice pay raise this offseason, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because that dude is unreal. And we had, let's be honest, what was the question we had? How would he handle coaching the entire secondary? Would the cornerbacks fall off now that he's coaching the entire secondary? I think through 5 games, Vince, we have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's fair?
I would.
I think we have an answer.
Yeah, I would.
He's just as good coaching the whole secondary as he was coaching corners.
Yeah.
He's legit.
And that's a look, and you have to give credit where it's due, right? I mean, he basically doubled the amount of guys that he has to coach. Right. And they're still really freaking good. So, yeah, he is that guy.
And like, I'm not saying like, I'm giving a lot of praise to Mike Mickens because I'm a coach. I just look at it that way. But it's not just he's a great position coach. Part of this is he's a great evaluator.
Sure.
Because none of the other big-time schools were beating down the door to go get Leonard Moore, just Notre Dame.
Right.
You know, like Bama and like with Benjamin Morrison, like that is a different deal. Like Saban wanted him. Jimmy Lake wanted him. Like those are dudes. This is a different one. This is a Mike Mickens special, right? Christian Gray, you had to beat LSU and Ohio State to get Christian Gray. Everybody thought Christian Gray was a dude his senior year. So my point is this: he's a great evaluator. And his ability, the kind of coach he is, he gives these very talented players the resources and tools they need to be their best. And that's what a great coach does. Give me great players, and then it's my job to make sure that they play to their potential. And it's hard for me to say that doesn't happen all over the secondary right now. You think about it, Vince. You had at one point in time in that game a 6-year senior who doesn't play corner at corner, a true freshman at corner.
Right.
A true sophomore at corner, and then Xavier Watts, and you're out there trying to, in the second half of a game, I believe, and you're trying to stop Louisville's offense. And guess what? They did. It's impressive, man. Like, talent is great. Coaching is great. Like, it's just impressive. And then my next, Vince, did you have another takeaway? Because I was going to go into, speaking of young people, I was going to go something else. What was your kind of takeaway?
You're good. No, you're good. We wrote down kind of what we were going to talk about. So, no, you're good. Hit it.
My next one is, dude, I was so impressed with the young linebackers just keep getting better and better and better and better. And again, there was mistakes in this game.
And you knew
Drake had
a
couple mistakes. Kingston had a couple mistakes. Jaden Osbury had a couple mistakes. But the whole point we said was, guys, that's going to happen. We said this all offseason. It's going to happen. But you live with it because they're going to make a ton of plays. And guess what? They all made a ton of plays. Kingston had the really bad run fit that resulted in the big. I think it was on Kingston. This is my opinion. Results in a 40-yard gain. Well, who recovers the fumble on the other end? Sophomore hustling down the field, Jaden Osbury, right? Kingston gets beat on the seam route. But then what does Kingston do? He comes out and executes the best dip and rip edge rush of the season by a Notre Dame player and gets a big sack in the game. I mean, it's just like it's like he makes those mistakes and his head doesn't go down. He doesn't get in his feelings and I made a mistake. No, he's like, you know what? I made a mistake. Move on. Next play. It's maturity beyond what you expect. Drake Bowen, gets beat, early. Doesn't phase him. Next play, I'm coming and I'm crashing you. I'm going to pound you. Jaden Osbury, same thing. Couple times he didn't have great fit, but he just comes out and makes plays. And that kid's ability to tackle in space was huge in this game, Vince. There's a couple times it's him and a receiver or a back in space in the pass game. And if he doesn't make the tackle, this might be something.
Yeah, big play.
And he makes it every time. Like that trio of young linebackers is, and I'll say this, a lot of what we're talking about here, the hit rate for Marcus Freeman, Chad Bowden, and this defensive staff in 23 and 24 is insanely high. Insanely high. When you think about how many of those kids are already like not only playing, but your top guys in a lot of instances. Like Bryce Young, when he first got put in the game against Purdue, looked like he didn't know what he was doing. He had a couple and then he got a little better. And there's some plays on Saturday against Louisville where you're like, oh man, in about 5 games, this guy is going to be a major problem as a freshman. It's like Boubacar's balling, and hopefully he's not out for the year. I mean, you just look at these younger players and start saying, like, this staff's ability to identify talent on defense is nuts because it's like, who's not a hit so far? You know what I mean? I mean, every freshman or sophomore linebacker that stepped on the field, you're like, yeah, they nailed that one. Boubacar, nailed that one. Bryce Young, nailed that one. Leonard Moore, nailed that one. You know what I mean? It's like these guys, Don Schuler, nailed that one. He wasn't ranked very high. I mean, what was Don Schuler's ranking coming out of high school, Vince? Let me go look that up here real quick. Don Schuler, I know we had him as a top 150 guy. Highest ranking for him was 240 nationally. Rivals had him as a 3-star. 247 Sports didn't even have him in their top 247. I would say he's outplayed his ranking so far. That hit, success, and but I thought the linebackers, especially Vince, this is a special group. And when these kids are like next year with Kingston, Drake, Jaden Ausberry kind of dominating the inside in some trio, oh my gosh. When they get another year under their belt, oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, somebody just said Kennedy Urlacher, Pitt. You know what I mean? They're and not all these guys are highly ranked, Vince. Matter of fact, most of them aren't. Kingston was highly ranked like that. Drake was highly ranked by everybody except on 3. But a lot of these, Bryce was highly ranked, but Logan Thomas, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't a super highly ranked guy. Kennedy wasn't highly ranked. Leonard Moore wasn't highly ranked. Adon wasn't super highly ranked. The identification of this staff is huge, and they were so impactful on Saturday. Like, think about that. All the stuff we talked about with this defensive coaching staff or this defensive performance, that was done. There was a time in the fourth quarter, Vince, I can't remember if it was 6 or 7, but I counted 6 or 7 freshmen or true sophomores on the field at the same time. And you're just like, man.
Oh, yeah.
And they're out there making stops.
And they were out there in big moments. It wasn't like they were out there when it was 42-0. No. You know what I mean? Like, they were out there when it mattered and making plays. So that was massive. That was absolutely massive. So
those are my really big 2 takeaways. I mean, we talked a lot about it. We talked about,
I agree. We talked about the veterans. And we talked about a lot of that kind of stuff. I agree.
The different things. I think we kind of everything we thought we saw live. A lot of it was confirmed.
Defensively,
there was nothing I saw on film that I was like, that was more disappointing than I thought. If anything, things were a little better than I thought. Right. Outside of some of the mistakes, but we already broke all that down. So I think we kind of nailed that.
We kind of talked about that in the post game show,
right?
You know what I mean? Right. So Anyway,
and we're trying to not have this just be a rehash of the post game show.
Correct.
That's why we're trying to do a little bit different.
Key moments on the defense. I think we've got a couple here that we want to talk about. First one I think was massive, and it was at the end of the first half, and them preventing Louisville from scoring.
I'm actually before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my first big moment was the strip of.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I just wrote that as number 2. So yeah. So yes, chronologically, absolutely.
You
correct.
were on your heels defensively. We've talked about how great the defense was, right? Didn't start that way.
No, it didn't.
Didn't start that way. You had 2 blown coverages on your first 4 plays, and then you had a blown assignment on a read zone, and the quarterback is literally. I mean, he is just. I thought at first he was going to be gone. Yeah, and I thought Xavier was eventually going to catch him, and then out of nowhere, Leonard Moore just comes flying downhill and strips it, and then Jaden Ausberry hustling like a champ from the backside falls on the ball. That was a huge moment because you were on your – they were about to be right now in your – one play go from – where was the ball? Because they started kind of deep, Vince, if I remember correctly. Notre Dame did a really nice job on their coverage.
They started
on that play.
They started. You're talking about they was on the Louisville 7. They were on the 7-yard line.
Yes, because that's right. Drake Bowen forced a fumble.
Yeah,
that's right. On the kick return, Drake forced a fumble.
So remember, you and I were talking about that. So they forced the fumble, and you and I were like, "Are they ever going to recover a fumble?" Remember that?
It's like the 9th time this year that a ball has gone on the ground on the defense or special teams that Notre Dame has not recovered. And I'm like,
we were so frustrated.
Unreal.
And then the very next
play.
The very next play, they cause a fumble and recover it. I was like, well, they recovered that one, Brian. So, yeah, I remember talking about that. So, yeah, they were backed up all the way to the 7.
Yeah, they were on their heels, Vince. Like, they were having a hard time with Louisville, with all the stuff Louisville's doing. Because they're not a heavy read zone team, but like they know that Notre Dame likes to crash backside. Notre Dame was on its heels defensively, big time.
Absolutely.
That play right there. And then the offense's response, to me, if you could point to any what was the biggest turning point of the game. It wasn't necessarily Notre Dame's initial response. That was big. But the turning point, because if you give another touchdown drive right back, that drive by Notre Dame is negated. It's out the gate. You're still down -7 because of the fumbled kick, right? But you make that play right there. Leonard Moore, Jaden Osbury making that play. And great job by Xavier Watts hustling, because the part of the reason Leonard forced it is because the quarterback is focused on Xavier, because Xavier was trying to catch him. And he's looking at Xavier trying to keep him off of him. And then Leonard comes from behind and knocks it out. 3 great plays on that, which overcomes a big mistake. That to me, and then, of course, the offense responded with a touchdown. That was the biggest turning point of the game for me, was that sequence right there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It completely changed the momentum of that game. I mean, just completely changed it. And look, Notre Dame had kind of gotten some of the momentum back by going on that long drive, obviously. But then to get that fumble and to go from, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just gave up a 50-yard run. You know what I mean? As I'm watching him just run in open green grass to, oh my gosh, the ball's on the ground. Oh my gosh, Notre Dame got it. And then they go down and score. It's massive. It was absolutely massive for that point in the game.
And it was huge for the crowd too. Like the crowd was going crazy when they forced that fumble and recovered it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was big time. It was big time.
Right.
And then Vince, let's go to the one you're talking about.
Yeah. So the next one was the series right before half. I mean, that was a situation where, I mean, come on, let's be honest. Louisville should have scored on that series. They got the ball on the 25-yard line. They took it 60 yards in 10 plays, and Notre Dame ends up turning them over on downs and prevents them from scoring. At the very least, they should have kicked a field goal, gotten some points out of it. It would have been a one-possession game. They didn't do it. They tried to go for it. You know, they had that replay and all that, you know, to see if the spot was good. He didn't make it. I mean, he did not make the first down. I think it was fairly clear. They called it that way on the field. They couldn't reverse it. That's a huge play going into halftime, because also Louisville was getting the ball to start the second half. I think people sometimes forget about that as well. If they score there, even if it's just a field goal, they're down 7. They get the ball back at the beginning of the second half. If they go down and score, now all of a sudden it's a tie game, completely different ball game. So you kept a 2-score lead going into halftime by stopping them after a pretty decent drive, by the way. I mean, 10 plays, 60 yards, pretty decent drive. You hold them out of the end zone, hold them without a field goal, turn them over on downs. That's pretty massive.
Well, if you add further context into the conversation, Vince, which is the drive before you had intercepted them, your offense gets you a field goal, so you're now up 10. You give up that last drive at the end of the game, and all of a sudden their momentum is back to them. To your point, now it's a 24-17 or 24-21 game. They start off with the half, and you're scrambling a little bit. Instead, it's a 10-point game going into halftime. So I thought that was huge. And, you know, honestly, Vince, if I'm looking at that play, I believe it was Heinisch and I'm going to try to find that. I believe it was Heinisch and Xavier Watts that made the play, right? But the thing I loved about the play, though, is let me go find that particular play, that 4th down play, is Kingston ends up not making the play. But if I remember correctly, he forced the bounce. So they ran a speed option on the play, right? Kingston reads it, and he starts running to the running back. So the running back you're catching that pitch, and you're running. I mean, this is your teaching point, Vince. You're an option guy. You know what the teaching point is. You catch the pitch, you are on a beeline for the sticks. That's the play. Kingston playing it the way he did forces the guy to bounce it a little bit, and then he dives at his feet, gets a piece of the foot, which causes the guy to chop. That was enough to allow Donovan and Xavier to catch up and drill him before he got to the sticks. Yep. And then great job by those guys, too, of coming with force and not letting them drag. But if Kingston doesn't make that initial read, and even though he doesn't, quote unquote, make the play, he read it perfectly, pitched it outside of him, and then his hustle forces that guy think about it, just that little stutter step of getting away from Kingston's attempt to tackle is what kept him from being this short of the first down. If he doesn't have to stop, if Kingston just crashes on the quarterback and doesn't play that correctly, That's a first down. And you probably get 3 or 4 yards on that play, Vince. So just a great play, and it was a play that last year Louisville ran at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame didn't play it well. And that was huge. And it just, again, great job by Kingston, great hustle by Donovan Heinisch. I mean, think about who we just talked about, Vince. I mean, Xavier, your All-American, makes the first hit, but who's coming screaming down the line? Your nose tackle. Like, I'm looking at this. He was engaging with the center on that play, Vince. He was engaged with the center, and he helps make that tackle at the sideline. You know what I mean? So, like, that's want to, Vince. That's want to. That's all that is. I want to make a freaking play here. This is a big moment. And it was 3 kids that played smart, but just wanted it. That's what it was, Vince. I want this. I'm going to make this play. And they made it.
Yeah.
And
100%.
That's where they're at.
And that's what I love to see about this defense. And they continue to grow and get more technically sound. But in only one game did I ever feel this season where they didn't have it turned up a little bit when it comes to a want to as a team. And I'm not calling anybody out individually, but it didn't feel like they had that want to against Northern Illinois. They've had it every other game. And hopefully that continues. And then you add into the, hey, young guys getting even more fundamentally sound as they go through it and not make as many mistakes and things like that. But then you're not kidding. This defense wanted it on Saturday, and it was fun to watch. When a defense is like that and they're flying around and they're flying to the football, then you can see the speed, the athleticism, and all of that it's clearly been recruited here. It's fun to watch, Brian. It's fun to watch. So that's going to do it for this edition of Upon Further. Oh, no, we've got some super chats. We have some super chats, I do believe, Brian. So why don't you go ahead and pull those up, and I will read them.
I want to say one last thing here, Vince, before we move to that.
Hit it.
There was still a time in the fourth quarter where they had the ball in Notre Dame territory on 4th down with a chance to tie the ball game, and they came up with another stop. So like that, there was to end the first half and end the game. Yeah. You had big 4th down moments, and you made plays.
Yep.
And did so without interfering, because for all the crying on ESPN apparently about that should have been PI. No, it could have been PI on the offensive guy who was grabbing Jordan Clark's jersey,
grabbing his
Jordan
jersey
Clark is making a play on the ball.
Right. Correct.
You know, so
come on.
Yeah, that was another big moment. And it made up for the fact that I hated that they went away from what they were doing on the previous drive and kind of not let them go down and score, but made it easier. I hate that. You've been doing this all game. You've been stopping them all game. Keep doing what you're doing. And, it is what it is. But that last drive was also pretty big. And there was a couple big plays leading up to that kept them in that 4th down situation and put the defense in a position to be able to put it away on that last one, Vince. So I was the clutchness of this defense in those moments was very important.
Yep.
Very, very important.
Agree with that completely.
Yeah. Yep. Because they had the 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, and 4th and 1, and you stopped them.
Yep.
And so that was big. It's big.
All right, let's hit some of these super chats, Brian, and we can wrap up the show for this evening. Anthony Solomon, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. Gentlemen, would you agree that the recruiting of Freeman and Bowden were spot on? Thanks. I think we answered that pretty well.
Certainly defensively. I think there's still some question marks about offense to a degree. I mean, there's been some hits, Vince, right? Jeremiah Love's been a hit. Anthony Knapp is struggling right now, but you can see the talent. You can see the potential for down the road. Only reason he's playing right now is because he was thrust into a role that none of us expected he would be thrust into as a freshman. So he obviously has got some. I mean, Sam Pendleton is going to be a really good player at Notre Dame. He's young. I mean, some young guys are being thrust into those spots. Cooper Flanagan's been very, very good. So Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young in limited snaps have both looked good. We haven't seen CJ Carr in a game or Kenny Minchie in a game, but goodness gracious, Vince, you and I have seen him in some practices and blue gold games, and they look pretty flipping good. So they just haven't had a chance to show it as much on Saturdays. Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, they have. So we're not seeing it as much on offense, but we're still seeing it on offense as well. But yes, the hit rate so far, Charles Jagasaw would have been one of those, right? That Harry Heastan identified and would have, so it's been super high on both sides of the ball, but especially on defense, Vince. Especially on defense. It's been crazy.
Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. Call me crazy. Bowen is quickly emerging as a leader on this defense, perhaps the team bringing the juice these past 2 games. The team needs leaders to step up in the next 7 games.
And I'm good if it's freshmen and sophomores. I don't care.
Doesn't matter to me.
You know, it really doesn't. I don't know that I would say Drake is emerging as a leader as much as I would say Drake is emerging as a playmaker on the defense. And look, this is what we talk about, guys. The more you play, the more confident you get in what's the only difference between Drake now and Drake in game 1 and 2 is he's more comfortable of what he's supposed to do.
Yep.
I know what to do now, so I can go harder more consistently. That's what it's about. Same thing with Kingston. Same thing with Jaden Alsbury. But yeah, I mean, Drake plays with a different type of, and really they all do. That's what I love about it. But Drake is your Mike, and he just plays with a lot of physicality and fire. And you're starting to see him play more emotionally. And what I mean emotionally, meaning like in reaction to stops and big plays. You're seeing him play with more fire because he's just more comfortable in what he's doing, Vince. And so he can just be more natural and more free. And boy, he's I mean, just again, it's like every time somebody wants to talk about Kingston, I want to bring up Drake and Jaden. Every time somebody talks about Jaden, I want to bring up Kingston and Drake. Every time somebody talks about Drake, I want to bring up Kingston and Jaden because it's just like the 3 of them are so freaking good together. Right. They just are, man. It's exciting. And I think Max Bull is doing a great job with them. Because when young players get better and better each week, you got to give a shout out to the coaching, and they're still making